I'm excited about it. I'm so glad everybody's here. I was just hoping to talk to one person, tell one person, but have everybody on here is awesome. This is going to be a very interactive, I'm going to kind of structure this where I'm going to go over parts, and I want everyone, if you have questions, to go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm going to stop at certain parts and go back and answer questions. I don't want to derail certain things. I'm going to start at the back of the transaction and work my way back. I'm going to break down the deal. If you want to know, I can get as specific as you want, but I'm going to be quick and be really general until people start stopping me and they want to know a little bit more. I have nothing prepared for this. I'm doing this for fun. I'm really excited about this. It was an awesome deal that I didn't expect to end this way or to really start this way. So if we have a second while everyone's coming on, you can follow me on all of the socials that Colleen's putting in there. We've got our Deal Shredders podcast. We have a lot of different content like this that we'll be putting out there to hopefully help everybody learn how to do these really creative things that we've done this last year. I'm going to give this 30 more seconds. Does anybody want to ask me a question while we got a couple more people coming on? Ben, it's good to see you, man.
Hey, good to see you too, Greg. Hope you're doing well.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, with the incredible upside that you're laying out here on this, is this something that, I mean, you kind of stumbled on, which I'm sure you're going to talk about a little bit, kind of how it happened to be, but is this something for you just seeing more of a shift to focusing on trying to redo the same thing?
Well, I guess so funny you brought that up. I mean, I don't see why you can't make a business plan out of this and do 4 or 5 of these a year, depending on how much capital you have, right? Mm-hmm. It's the waiting period. Like, and being okay with it not working out a year down the road, because, we happen to be in good markets. We happen to have good appraisals. So yep. Is it something? I definitely think there is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let these last few people in. Or Colleen's going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to get started. I'm going to share my screen. And this is just going to help me kind of know what we're doing. So I'm going to kind of do that now. Share this. So basically this is why we're here. The short story, could you guys see let me know if you can go ahead and see that. Let me know. Go ahead and get this out. So basically this is a 2-year BRRRR. I've had multiple properties put together and was able to cash out over $300,000 this week for this year, very unexpectedly. So I'm just going to get into it, guys. Throw your questions in there and I'm just going to go. Do we all know like exactly what this BRRRR method means? Some people do. Bigger Pockets, they kind of the one that coined this. I take no credit for this, but it's a great concept. It's used mostly for single family. So you take your house, you purchase the house, hopefully with cash or hard money, whatever. You're going to rehab it, hopefully within 90 days. So, a quick turnaround, because you're just making it rent ready. So you can get top of market rent. Rent it for the top of the market. Hopefully you bought it right. And with the improvements you've put in and your market rate, it hopefully will appraise higher than all you have into it. Then you take that cash out and you use that as your down payment for another property, your second rental. What I did was basically taking that down payment and putting it toward multifamily instead as part of it. So, and then you do the process again. So I wanted to start at the end with the new loan, right? Because this is where it finally capped. This is the end. We're going to work our way back. The loan was about $850,000. That was the max that they were able to loan to me for whatever reason. It's a 5-year balloon payment on a 25-year AM, and it's costing me about $4,200 a month. The closing costs were about $4K. A lot of that was just title, for each property. Appraisals were in there. The appraisals were expensive. They were really hard to get. And I think the origination was maybe $1,000 or $1,200. It wasn't a lot to get into it. And then I was able to cash out that. So there's with that. So I'm going to go into the first property. So this is the first purchase, 2018, right? Found this one from just on the dialer. This was through an experimental, just trying to figure this out. I was able to negotiate and get this for 242.5. I was able to, I kept 2 of the tenants and I evicted one, and one was vacant. So this was the original numbers before. Again, 650. The landlord was, or the current seller was really nice to let me go in and get new leases while I was still under contract. So when I closed, I had my new leases already in place instead of doing that after. I definitely recommend doing that if you can. If you know you're going to close on the building, get your own leases or your property management leases done before you close. And so I put maybe 10K into it. I had a roof because of that roof was pretty bad when I got it, but like the storms and stuff over the past 2 years, it really made it bad. So I had insurance was able to get that done for me. I maybe put like, $5 or $6 grand and turning over that one unit and like, stuff outside, but it was generally in good shape. And this one appraised at 382. That's not even the full market rent. So I've got room to grow in this one. I probably can raise each of at least 100 a door. So I'm going to move on to the next one. So there's property 1. I just took a normal 75% conventional loan with Bancorp South. I think it was like 5%ish at that time. My payment was $1,350. So this is the second one I bought. Now this is single family. Bought it for 41. I put a little bit into it, $2,500 into it, and I was able to get $850 for rent, and I had no debt on this. So this is a little bit different. Instead of cashing out and taking my money out, I wanted to keep the equity in the property because I wanted to have access to it at the same time. I didn't want the monthly payment. I didn't want to have to do a normal cash out refi. I didn't want to have to pay the closing costs, but I wanted to access the equity. And I knew it was for a short period of time, under 2 years. So what I did was I just went to a bank like Liberty Financial and I pulled a standard, like a line of credit against it. They do a desk review of 80% or 75 or 80%. And they give you a line of credit. So what I did was I take that line of credit and then I go ahead and use that for buying something else. Not for the next property, but for whatever. It was able to access the equity for whatever I wanted to do without obligating myself to another mortgage. So this one was no debt, and I got the appraisal back at $82,000. And this was the one I think I got like a $60-something thousand line. This was the third one. $215 was the purchase price on this. I probably put about $50K into it. This was probably one that I put the most money into. Normal 75% conventional loan. That was with Bancorp South. I was paying $1,150 a month. And the rents were, one was vacant, $500, $600, and $550. Now I'm getting $795 for, I would get for all, but she's been the $695. She's been there a while. Great tenant. Don't have to fix anything. She gets that discount, but I have the room to, if she moves that out. So these 3 were all 2018. Okay. So I was able to get the 75 conventional. Down here, this was, I purchased in 2020. The reason why that's important is because on this refi, of anything I purchased within the last 12 months, this bank, Liberty Financial, they just happened to give me 80% of those instead of 75 on the others. So the 80% was for this Happy Hollow, this single family. I bought it for 65. I overpaid for this house. I put 10 into it. I bought a new HVAC. I didn't pull any debt, and I still pulled a line of credit on this one also, in case I wanted to buy something. This, I didn't use it. It sits in my account. I can use it if I want to, or if I don't have to pay a payment. And this one refied back at 102, and it rents for $895. This one was also purchased last year. This was this is a whole story behind itself. I thought it was 7 units, but it was really 6. And I paid $250 for this in 2020. It appraised for $290, but they can only give me the 80% of the last appraisal within 12 months, which was my purchase. I had just bought this, took it down with a loan, overpaid a little bit for the loan. I think I had like 5.25. It was right during COVID when the rates were just before they were dipping down. They were like in the high 4s, late 5s. Was not a good experience with that loan, but that's what I ended up with. and I'm still putting this one needs a lot of work, still putting some improvements into it, but it appraised at 290, 292, and I'm getting about 4,200 a month right now. I think that I'm going to be able to get 700 per unit is what I projected to be. So usually you're going to do the BRRRR with a single family, you do another one. With this is you're accumulating these properties over the time, right? I didn't expect to even cash out. So it would made my lenders just said, like, you're already doing another one. Just why don't you already have all your stuff, go ahead and do it. So what you really do is you slowly accumulate these properties and you do the same thing, but you do it over time. And then this is called a blanket mortgage. You're able to wrap the single families, the multifamilies, and all these other properties together into one loan. They're in different states, they're in different areas. So a lot of people, they have these single family portfolios, I mean, they got rentals here. They've got, if you have multiple rentals, you can do the same thing and put it all onto one loan. They will max you out at a certain LTV that they can lend out. And then you just put whatever you can into there, at 3% or whatever it is. You'll have one loan, it's with one bank, and then you can cash out all of them like multifamily. They don't actually have to be attached together or in the same development. They could be like this one was in Kentucky. This one happened to be in Kentucky, and the other ones were in Tennessee, Clarksville and Louisville. So you can actually do that. And that's, putting them together, you created all the equity and you cash out your 75% or whatever on the full portfolio. If it's 10 single family homes, whatever it is, right? Well, now that you've just done that, you've taken your cash out, you have your equity back out now. So it's like, well, since I did that, I'm going to commit to keeping these for at least the term of the loan, the 5 years, right? Unless something smoking comes along, but you've done the work, you might as well enjoy the cash flow, because it's still cash flowing, $3-4 grand a month, easy, with not even being fully seasoned. So if you're going to do that, I suggest doing what they call a cost segregation study. And what they do is they slowly depreciate the asset over time and they squish it all into the front. So basically what they do is they'll depreciate it for 25 years, your one property, and whatever that full 25 years savings was, you take on the front end toward the year you bought the property's taxes. I'm sorry, the year you do the refi. So I closed all this refi in 2020. So I was able to write all of that depreciation off in my 2020 taxes. So you have the advantage of the cash flow, the depreciation against your income, and then getting your cash back to do other things with. And being able to access the equity. That's why I like to mix the single family with the multifamily, because it makes more sense for me, I think, to put a conventional loan on the multifamily and pay cash for the single family. This way you have the liquidity for the single families to be able to take that money and still be able to use it without actually taking down the loan and then having multiple properties. So I like to diversify. This way, maybe something comes along, I could still sell it. Now I can sell it. They will valuate part of the loan and then sell it. And I can do it that way too, but I like to be a little bit diversified in the portfolio and then take it and then stick it into one area and then take that cash and do this again. So like Ben said, like, can you do this multiple times? And I think you can. I mean, anything under the 300,000 will get you into these multifamilies, and depending on where the market is, you can have in different states. They don't have to be everywhere. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the chat. If you guys have a second, follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, subscribe to our Deal Shatters podcast so you could hear more stuff like this.
This is awesome, Greg. So back to what you were saying on the single family, which I get that, where you're having a note on the multifamily, but then paying cash for single family. But once you did this, basically a blanket mortgage or a portfolio loan, now that single family, you still have that as a line of credit, or there's a 8% whatever note on the single family.
So I just rolled it into the loan altogether at the end. I just don't pull it at the beginning. I still access the cash. I just don't want it now. I don't want the obligation right away. I'd rather leverage short-term the multifamily because it just makes more sense,
100%.
I think.
Hey, Greg, you mentioned the 5-year term. Any
Yes.
particular reason for that? Or what is the plan with the properties? What's your long-term plan?
I mean, it's a great question. So basically, that's just what they offered me. I could have probably got a 10-year with a little bit more interest, something like that. But in my opinion, once I commit to doing this refi, I don't really plan on selling through that term. So now I just cashed out this, right? So over 5 years, the property is going to appreciate because I still have room to increase the rents. People are going to move out. I'm going to fix them up. The market is going to naturally appreciate, hopefully. So that 5 years comes and you just do it again. You know, maybe the portfolio, if it's worth 1.5 now, maybe in 5 years it's worth 2 million. You can get another 150, 200 grand out of it. So you could cash out of these as a 5-year paycheck to yourself, basically. You know, I would only sell this. So here's what you got to remember if you depreciate it. If I were to go sell it a year later, I've got to recoup and give all that back, right? So I'm not going to sell these unless I find something way bigger and make this my down payment to 1031 into a portfolio of 75% more valuable.
Yeah.
So basically this would be my 25% down payment, 1031 into another thing.
So it sounds, so correct me if I'm wrong, the 5-year term is really because it's a plan to continually refi and cash out so that you can acquire more properties with that equity.
Well,
that's basically not so concerned with the interest rate over the long term.
No. Yeah, right. I just want to get the best cash flow for that small period of time. Like you can take out 10, 20 and still refi in 5. I may refi out of this in a year. You know,
Right.
Who knows what happens? Something happens and it makes sense, then you do it. I look at it every year, but I have to refi that 5-year term because I have that balloon payment coming up. So at that point, I either going to have to sell it or I'm going to have to refi into something else, or hopefully talk to that lender to see if they'll just refi you again. So, but you do owe that balloon payment after the end of the term.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Wyatt Wallace, are all of these in Clarksville? A lot of them are, but I have one in Georgetown, 6 units in Georgetown. The rest are in Clarksville. Do I have a breakdown of all the appraisals LTV allowed by the new lender and old mortgage payment to arrive at the cash out total? Yes and no. I'd have to dig up some of the stuff. I have the appraisals where I had on the slides. So I can go over the appraisals real quick for you. This one appraised for 290 when I paid 250. This appraised for 102, paid 65, put 10 into it. This one appraised for 335, paid 215, put 50. 82, paid 41, put in 2,500. 382, paid 242, put 10 in. And we can talk further about that. Just hit me up if you want anything specific to go over. Preference to stick with one bank or always shop between 3 or 4 more? Absolutely shop. So the reason why I use this bank is I was already doing another refi. I have another 14 doors in Clarksville that I'm doing this. We did it, me, Eric, and Chad. This is what gave me the idea. They were doing it. So that's a whole nother deal breakdown. It's actually the second refi in 2 years. We closed on it with hard money, refied it the first time, and then we refied it again. So that lender already gave us aggressive terms and everything. So I was like, well, why you have they had all the information they needed for these properties. I'm like, why don't I just go ahead and refi these out? So yeah, I would suggest definitely checking with your commercial banks, your financial institutions, and anybody you know, and definitely shop around. You know, you want to look at your term, your APR, what your interest rate is going to be, the APR is going to be, any closing costs, and what the requirements are for appraisals. And one big thing is if they have a seasoning period. This bank didn't have a seasoning period. Like I used First Bank before, they had no seasoning period either. Some will lend right away with no seasoning on your appraisal. Ken, The only hard part is when you need to spin these down, selling these one at a time from within the portfolio with, okay, so this isn't really a portfolio loan. It's a blanket mortgage. So basically, let's just pretend I want to sell Hyman Street. I get the appraised value. They're going to just do an evaluation on that appraisal, and they'll satisfy just that part of the loan. So I could still sell these at any time, which is really nice. I don't want to sell them because I already took the depreciation, all that stuff out. But this loan makes it really easy. No prepayment penalty or any penalties to do that either. Scott, more of a general question. After looking back, do I feel the most sensible way to begin is to move into the first buy, then convert my existing owner occupied property to the first investment, then convert that buy to, so here's, Scott, that is a whole other thing, but the answer is yes and no. Number one, if you have a primary residence and you own it, I don't care who you are or what you do for a living. If you have a job, you need to replace your mortgage with a first position HELOC, and you'll have access to your full equity. Then you take that lien and buy your properties. That's what I would do to buy your first property, not your second and go back. Use that, leverage your house first and make that your first lien. Scott, we can talk further about that. How are you buying way below market value, finding distressed sellers? Well, that is always the $1 million question. These particular ones, two of them were people that I knew that called me like, hey, I have this property for sale. And the other ones were all just cold calling the neighborhoods. That's all I do is stick to old school. James Brown, did you use the locks on the single families before the blanket was used? Yes, multiple times. They were great for me. I think the two were 60 each, so I had 120 grand. So I mean, I would either invest in other stuff, buy land, whatever. But I did use them. I just had to satisfy that loan before, it's just like a payoff. Ben, awesome question. How pricey or time consuming was the cost seg? So I used this guy named Boomer. It took 5 minutes of my time. Basically what he did was he goes to the properties. It helped because I had appraisals. So he had all the dimensions, all the stuff he needed. So he may have to do some measurements, but he didn't have to do that with mine. He gets your depreciation schedule from your CPA, because obviously some stuff gets depreciated over time. Anything over like $500 gets depreciated automatically. That's what all my property managers do. And it was probably about $2,000 on average per property. So that is another thing. I made sure that I had the cost for that paid for the year that I was appreciating it, so I could write that off also that same year. So if you need write-offs, I mean, that's a heck of a write-off to be able to write that off and get the depreciation. It was extremely easy. It was just.
Hey, Greg, can I jump in there? This is Michael Mead. So just while you're on this point, sure. If it's $2,000 per property on some of those single families where you bought for like 40 grand,
mm-hmm.
I mean, do you think it's worth paying $2,000 to a cost seg on 40 grand? Because
wonderful question, dude. Okay, glad you brought that up. I did not do the cost seg or depreciation on the single families, only the multifamilies.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and that's a great question. I asked him the same thing. He said there's just really not enough to do it, because it's really for apartment buildings and large offices, because they depreciate all the windows and all the HVACs, the roofs. That's kind of basically what it is. If you have one of everything, I mean, that's just repairs basically,
Would you have any idea on the properties you bought for like all the quads, I guess?
Sure.
Or any of the ones all your multifamilies, is if it costs $2,000, how much property, I guess, was not the structure? So how much was your 5-year property, everything that you got to take year one depreciation of?
Well, could I share
like
it
a
with
200?
You?
Yeah.
I don't know tons about it. I just know how to get it done. I knew it made sense for me. I'm not an expert in it, but I'd be happy to share with you right now if you want to take a look at it.
Please.
Bear with me 1 second. Let me pull it up. All right, here we go. So this is what it looks like. Go ahead and Moves people over so I could see it. So I didn't look too hard into this, but you can see how they depreciates it over time. So basically, if I sell this in 5 years, I would have to pay back like the first 5 years and the rest gets put back. And you can see right here, cumulative net presence of benefit, cumulative future use of invested savings.
It's pretty small on my screen. Does it say like what's your total of, or would you have a total of everything that isn't the land value? Or yeah, that's a little better. Okay, so you got 40,000 immediate write-off and 5-year property. Okay, or 38
Yeah, we
on
can
this
do,
one.
Mike, we can dig into this further. I have everything and I'm happy to send you everything if you want to look at it. Absolutely. And I'm happy to send it to anybody. Guys, if you want any information, you can look at my appraisals. I'm open book. Shoot me a message or whatever. I'm going to send this out. Feel free to reply back if you want anything further also.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to take a look at those cost segs.
Yeah.
Considering doing
Yeah,
it
just shoot
myself.
me a text and I'll be happy to get that over to you today.
Yeah, thanks for being open about that, Greg.
yeah.
Really helpful and insightful. So was there a strategy to doing the cost seg last year and the refi this year? I mean, because on the refi, you're not increasing exposure on taxes, you still have the asset, but was there a strategy in that?
It was just the timing that it happened.
Okay.
It was the end of the year and I know I needed the write-offs anyway. So I tried to get it done before the end of last year.
Yeah.
Like you have to like, I mean, I have an accountant, they look at my books, we look at everything every month. When we know that we have heavy months, we have to offset it somehow, or you're literally just going to pay it in taxes. So purposely every year I try to buy something that needs a lot of work, that needs repairs where I'm not really making money, and slowly season throughout that first year. And then by the time it seasons, you can take the tax benefits, do a little bit better, do the cash out then.
Mhm.
So hopefully this year, my plan would be to do this, buy enough properties to do, like, so I'm buying a new office, by the way. It's an OR40, it's a single family home basically. And I'm immediately going to depreciate that. I think it's like $80,000 on taxes. So that'll be my one for next year, and maybe there'll be more, but you don't have to do it right away. I mean, see what you have, like you can have a portfolio, like I'm going to wait to depreciate that next year, let that do its thing for a while. So you're going to have to look at your global, talk to your CPA, talk to your financial planner. And frankly, I just kind of winged a lot of this stuff. I've talked to people literally talk to people around me, my lenders, I look at people like you, that's how I do all that stuff. So if you want to talk to Boomer, I'll give you his number too.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah. All right. Guys, I think I've answered all your questions. Anything last minute before I sign off? I really appreciate you guys coming on here. I thought I'd have like 2 or 3 people. I had 80 people sign up. I feel pretty good about 25 showing up. So you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Is there anything else?
Appreciate you, Greg.
It could be even related. Doesn't have to be related to this. Anything else, guys, before I go?
When are you going to send me that 16 unit that I need to buy?
We're 60. How about we do 60, not 16?
That's even better.
Didn't I sell you a 16 unit already last year?
Yeah, you did.
All right. So you're like in the list. You're like way behind everybody else now. So
Front of the list.
no, just messing with you, buddy. Well, guys, Ben, let's catch up, guys. Everybody, shoot me your if any more questions. I'm gonna send this out to everybody. If you want, hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully you've taken a little bit of nuggets away. Anything I can do to be of assistance to any of you, feel free to reach out. My number and everything is probably in the chat. Looks like it is. So I'm gonna roll out, everyone, and we'll see y'all later.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
See you guys.